Hi, I'm Tamsin, and 2 days after I had an emergency C-section, my parents told me to pack my bags because my brother needed my room for his live stream setup. They didn't say congrats, they didn't ask if I could walk yet, they just handed me a suitcase and told me to figure it out. Then he went live and accidentally revealed everything. What kind of family throws out their own daughter, with stitches still fresh, so a grown man can play video games in better lighting? And why did they erase me from more than just the house? Why did they erase me from the will, from their story, from their memory, like I never existed at all? The staples in my abdomen tugged every time I shifted, as if my body was reminding me it had been sliced open less than 2 days ago. Lily stirred in my arms, her tiny breath warm against my chest, her fingers curling unconsciously against my hospital gown. I tried sitting upright on the edge of the bed I once called mine. Buttercream walls surrounded me, soft and delicate, the color I chose at 7 months pregnant, painting between contractions because I didn't want her to arrive into anything less than something I built with love. There were no flowers on the windowsill, no welcome home banner, not even a phone call from my sister, Isolde. Just silence, except for the sound of my own labored breathing and Lily's slow, rhythmic suckling. The knock wasn't really a knock, it was the jarring sound of my bedroom door being flung open. Joran stormed in, wearing that ridiculous headset like a crown, the mic dangling beside his jaw. His eyes scanned the room, not in concern, but calculation. "This lighting's actually perfect," he muttered, lifting his phone and using one of those augmented reality measuring apps. "If I set the camera over there, the natural light hits my side profile. Sick." "Joran," I whispered, not wanting to wake Lily. She just fell asleep. "Please, could you come back later?" He waved me off like background noise. "You're not gonna be here much longer anyway, right? I mean, Mom said by tonight?" That sentence sat in the air like a slap. "Tonight?" I blinked. He didn't look up. "Yeah, big stream coming up. Sponsored. $12 deal. Gotta look pro." The door opened again, slower this time. Vera, my mother, walked in, her heels clicking against the hardwood like a metronome of dismissal. She didn't say hello. She didn't look at Lily. Instead, she moved to the closet, dragging out my suitcase with one hand and reaching up for the top shelf with the other. "You're fine, Tamsin," she said flatly. "Women do this every day. You had a baby, not a brain surgery." "I had an emergency C-section," I said calmly. "I'm on medication. I can't even walk to the bathroom without crying." "You're being dramatic," she replied, tossing a bundle of my clothes onto the bed. She didn't bother folding anything. Some of the clothes still had faint blood stains from the night my water broke. She added, "Isolde had 3 C-sections and was hosting brunch a week later." I bit the inside of my cheek. Gideon, my father, appeared in the doorway, arms crossed, eyes vacant. "Joran needs the room," he said, like it was an order from above. "He's trying to make something of himself. You can stay with Kyle, or maybe Emma?" "Kyle left," I said. "You know that, and Emma's in Denver this month." Vera threw a pair of jeans into the suitcase. "There's a shelter in town for new mothers. You could call—" "I'm breastfeeding," I interrupted, my voice cracking. "Yeah, I can't stay in a shelter." She turned, arms on her hips. "Then stop making everything harder for yourself. Honestly, Tamsin, we gave you 9 months. You knew this wouldn't be forever." I looked down at Lily, at the little beanie that slid down over her closed eyes. I'd brought her into this world alone. Kyle had vanished at month 7 with a text message and a bank transfer of $75 for supplies. I'd painted this room with a swollen belly and stiff joints. I'd stenciled clouds on the wall. That wall. "This yellow," Joran muttered, interrupting my thoughts. "Hideous. Definitely going Navy. I inhaled so sharply I thought a staple popped loose. That's the nursery wall, I whispered. He paused, looked at me as if I'd told him I had painted it with my tears. Cool story. Anyway, I'll need to paint it tonight. Gotta test lighting with the new ring light. I didn't respond. I couldn't. I stared at my suitcase, half-packed, slouched on the bed like a quiet betrayal. Vera pulled the zipper halfway. Car's out front. Your dad will help you down the stairs. No lifting, no stairs, no driving, I said again, like a mantra that might protect me. You're being difficult, she snapped. Gideon, help her. He stepped forward with the enthusiasm of someone asked to clean up after someone else's dog. I wrapped Lily in her swaddle. My incision throbbed as I stood. The pain pulsed in every joint, every memory. Gideon took the suitcase. I took Lily. Vera stayed behind, inspecting the room for things Joran could use. At the top of the stairs, I turned back. For a second, I thought maybe they'd say something, offer a last-minute gesture of decency. But Gideon looked down at his watch. We need the room cleared by 6. And that was that. I shuffled down, one step at a time, clutching the banister with my elbow, balancing Lily with both arms. Halfway down, I heard Joran upstairs. Hey guys, he said brightly into the mic. Welcome back to the stream. Got a new setup today. This room's mine now. He was already plugging in his camera when I was halfway down the stairs. That sentence echoed in my skull as I stood on the curb, squinting against the sun. My old Corolla looked even sadder than I remembered. The cracked mirror, the dent on the passenger side from when Kyle hit the mailbox and swore it wasn't his fault. I eased Lily's car seat into the back with both hands, her head nestled against a rolled-up towel like the nurse had shown me. She stirred, but didn't cry. At least one of us was used to being transported without warning. When I finally slid behind the wheel, my body betrayed me again. Pain ripped through my side, sharp and unrelenting. I hissed, gripping the steering wheel while trying not to collapse onto the dashboard. I breathed in slowly, like the Lamaze instructor had taught me months ago. I never got to use those techniques during labor. Lily never waited for the birth plan. I looked at the house through the rearview mirror. It was already swallowing me whole, erasing my name off the walls I once claimed. There wasn't a single light on upstairs, but I could feel the glow of Joran's LED panels humming to life. That room belonged to him now. That room I painted, cried in, bled in. Gone, just like that. I didn't know where to drive, so I didn't. Instead, I sat there, letting the engine idle, while Lily dozed off in her seat. My eyes drifted to the rear view again. For a brief moment, I imagined someone would come running out. Dad maybe, or even Mom, with an apology, a sandwich, a blanket, anything that might resemble decency. But the door stayed shut, and the porch light didn't flicker. I thought back to 3 months ago, standing on a step stool, balancing my belly as I reached for the top corner of the nursery wall. I had bought a stencil kit online. Tiny clouds, pale gray on soft yellow. I spent an entire Saturday painting them, humming to Lily through my skin, telling her this room would be her sky, that no matter what happened, this room would feel safe. Joran was playing something loud upstairs that day, zombie gunshots and teenage shrieking, and I asked if he could turn it down. He groaned like I'd ruined his entire night. He didn't come down to help, not once, and yet now, that wall, my wall, was his backdrop for strangers on the internet. I reached into the console and pulled out Lily's baby monitor. Out of habit, I flicked it on. I forgot the base was still plugged into the wall upstairs. Static, then a crackle of sound, and then his voice. Yo guys, this room's hideous. We're painting over this. It's like a daycare in here. My heart stuttered. I didn't know whether to laugh or vomit. That yellow? He continued. Whack. It's gonna be navy with some hex LED strips. Trust me, way more pro. Also, get this, there were little clouds painted under the window. Like real clouds. Cringe. My grip tightened on the monitor until it creaked. Lily stirred in the back seat. I quickly turned it off. He didn't know I could still hear him. He never asked if I'd taken the monitor. He probably never even looked around the room after I left. I placed it on the passenger seat like it was something contaminated. Then I started the car and drove. I didn't have a plan. Emma was in Colorado. Madison hadn't called since my second trimester. Kyle had disappeared faster than his promises, so I drove. Past the old Safeway, past the community pool, past everything that used to feel familiar before I got pregnant. I kept seeing that wall, the way I pressed my hand to it when the first contraction hit at home, the way Lily's name shimmered under the window in chalk marker. I thought about going back to take a photo, but I knew it would hurt more. Some things were better left undocumented. As I circled the block, I caught a glimpse of the second-floor window. He was there. Joran stood in the center of the room, my room, facing the camera. He was checking angles. He adjusted a ring light, smoothed his hair, and posed like a soldier ready for war. His war was attention, views, engagement. His weapon was charm, smirks, digital filters, and he'd won. He looked down at the street and saw me. For one split second, our eyes met. He didn't wave. He just turned his body slightly and checked the lighting again. Lily whimpered from the back seat, a soft, broken sound. I reached behind me and brushed her blanket. "It's okay, baby," I murmured. "The worst is behind us." But then the worst introduced itself with a Twitch notification. I pulled over at a half-empty strip mall, wedging my car between a dented truck and a rusted sedan. Lily had fallen asleep again, tiny fists curled against her chest, mouth still puckered from feeding. I didn't want to wake her. I didn't want to move. I didn't want to exist, really, not in this moment. So I sat, staring blankly through the windshield until my hand found the phone on the passenger seat and opened Twitch like muscle memory. There he was, my brother, wearing that obnoxious headset again, hair gelled like he had somewhere important to be. He was standing in the room that just yesterday still smelled like baby lotion and hospital discharge sheets. "This room used to be my sister's," Joran said to his stream, gesturing behind him like he was unveiling a stage. "But she's fine. She's being dramatic. I mean, women have babies every day." The chat exploded with laughing emojis and clapping gifs. One user typed, "Must be nice to be the golden child." I didn't cry. I just hit replay, again and again, 12 years old. I'd burnt my hand on the oven door trying to bake brownies for the first time. Vera found me running cold water over it in the kitchen sink. "Your sister Isolde broke her arm and still made it to violin practice," she told me without blinking. "Don't be so fragile." I didn't know it then, but that sentence would become the soundtrack of my life. Now, decades later, my mother's voice echoed again, this time from memory. "Isolde had 3 C-sections and still threw brunches the next weekend. You act like you're the first woman in history to give birth." I should have answered her that day, should have said, "No, but I might be the first one in your house to do it alone." But I didn't. I swallowed it, like always. I thought about Isolde's baby shower. Vera had printed banners, ordered monogrammed cupcakes, and arranged peonies in mason jars. She wore pastel like she was the one expecting. She touched Isolde's belly with reverence, as if that child would save the family name. My child didn't even get a blanket folded. When I was pregnant, Vera said, COVID makes it tricky, and you don't seem that social, which, in our house, was just code for, we didn't think you were worth it. A notification blinked at the top of my phone. I closed Twitch and opened a private message from a high school classmate who'd apparently seen the stream. Didn't know you were back in town. That was your nursery, right? Dang, brutal. I stared at her words like they were in another language. And maybe they were, one I'd never been fluent in. The language of being visible, of being believed. Later that night, I unzipped the overnight bag Vera had tossed together for me. It smelled faintly of her laundry soap, lavender and bleach. I dug around for Lily's extra onesie and found a folded piece of yellow cloth instead. It was a baby blanket, not mine, not Lily's, but his. Crooked navy thread stitched the name Derek in the corner, Joran's middle name. I blinked, holding it between my fingers. It was old, frayed, and stained in the corners. I could imagine Vera folding it gently all those years ago, preserving it like a family relic. And now she'd handed it off to me like a consolation prize. She had said, I saved it for when one of you needed it. 30 years she'd kept it, and not once did she mention it during my pregnancy, not at the baby's arrival, not until she was shoving me out the door. I sat on the edge of the motel bed, staring at the stitching. It wasn't just the name, it was the message. He was always more real to me than you. I laid Lily on the bed, her breath steady and soft. Then I folded the blanket again, walked to the motel trash can, and dropped it in. It didn't feel good, or powerful, or anything really, just quiet. Vera always said I exaggerated, that I turned everything into drama, that I imagined slights that weren't there. But when you've been denied care, voice, space, and then you're told you made it all up, you begin to doubt your own pulse. When the world spins so fast and no one tells you why, you stop trusting your feet on the ground. She didn't want me, but the world was about to know exactly how little she did. I parked outside a 24-hour Walgreens, engine running, heat blowing in gusts against the window, fogging it up as Lily snored softly in her car seat. The Twitch notification still sat on my phone screen, but I hadn't touched it since. I didn't need to replay Joran's voice to hear it again. His words had already burrowed deep into my chest, rubbing against every raw part like sandpaper. My fingers hovered over the phone for a long moment before I tapped Dad and hit call. The line rang just once. He answered flat, like he was on a work call. Tamsin? I swallowed. Can we talk? Alone? Without Mom? She's right here, he replied without hesitation. No movement in tone, no warmth. We've talked. We think it's best if you stay with a friend, or maybe look into one of those mother shelters, just for now. I said nothing, just stared out at the flickering sign above the pharmacy's automatic doors. He continued, You need rest, privacy. That's not something we can provide right now with Joran's schedule. He has deadlines. You want your daughter and her newborn granddaughter, I said slowly, in a shelter? He exhaled. You're acting like we kicked you into the street. No, I said. You kicked me out of your story. That's worse. He didn't respond. I could hear the clinking of dishes in the background. My mother, maybe already rearranging furniture, or maybe setting the table for a dinner I'd never be invited to again. I ended the call. I stared at the dashboard for a while, blinking hard at nothing. My hands were numb against the steering wheel, not from the cold, but from whatever this feeling was, this mixture of humiliation and clarity. I opened my messages, scrolling to a few friends I hadn't spoken to in months. My thumb hovered over Emma's name, then swiped up to someone from college, Sarah. I typed a quick message, asking if she might know anyone renting a room or if she had space for a night or two. The dots appeared almost instantly. Wait, you're back in Spokane? I thought, wait, didn't your mom say you moved away and cut ties with the family? Pause. She told me last winter you didn't want contact anymore. I thought you were gone. I honestly thought you'd died. She sent a screenshot. A reply from Vera on a baby shower post, casually written like weather talk. Tamsin chose to walk away. She's no longer part of this family. No anger, no mourning, just a declaration of disappearance. I sat there, watching the cars trickle in and out of the lot, watching Lily's chest rise and fall. My voice wouldn't work, but my thoughts kept whispering to me. She buried you socially before she even cut you out legally. I thought about Lily reading that message 20 years from now, wondering why her mom didn't go home after giving birth, wondering what I did wrong, wondering why I didn't scream louder. I didn't want her to inherit my silence, I whispered. But right now, silence is the only armor I have. The sky had turned darker, somewhere between dusk and surrender. I drove for another 30 minutes, past neighborhoods I used to know, past homes I once visited. Eventually, I pulled up outside an old friend's house, someone who hadn't replied yet, but might have been out, or busy, or maybe just not sure what to say. The porch light was off. I sat in the car with the engine running, staring at the quiet front door. If I knock, I said aloud, I admit I have nowhere to go. I looked down at Lily. If I don't, I'll be cold, and proud, and broken. She stirred and sighed, stretching in her sleep. I turned off the engine. The silence wrapped around us like a second skin, not comforting, just familiar. I never knocked, but someone else opened a door I didn't know was still there. I woke up to the smell of bacon and black coffee. The window beside the bed was open just enough to let in a breeze, carrying with it the soft rustle of pine trees. For a second, I forgot where I was. Then Lily stirred next to me in her portable bassinet, and it all came rushing back. The stairs, the suitcase, the silence at the bottom of it all. Marla didn't ask questions when she opened the door last night. She just looked at me, saw Lily sleeping in my arms, and said, "You can stay as long as you need." This morning, she set a cup of tea down beside me without a word, then smiled as if we'd always done this. "No mother should leave her daughter bleeding," she said gently. Not a sermon, not a pity statement, just the truth. While Lily fed quietly in the crook of my arm, I checked my phone. Notifications. Dozens of them. The one that stopped me cold was the banner across my lock screen. Joran is now live. My thumb tapped the icon before my brain could talk me out of it. There he was, in my old room. No, his studio now. The soft yellow wall was gone, painted a dull gray that caught the ring light perfectly. He paced in front of the camera, energy high, smile locked in place like he was selling a miracle. "Big stream tonight," he said, adjusting his mic. "New setup. You wouldn't believe what this used to be." A few viewers asked, "Wait, wasn't that your sister's room?" He laughed, short and careless. "Yeah, she was in here before. But she's fine. She's just being dramatic. Mom said—" He paused, then added with a smug shrug, "She milked that C-section for attention. Her words, not mine." The chat erupted in emojis and LOLs. I froze. He didn't know he was live when he said it. I could tell by the way his eyes widened a fraction when the comments poured in, but he didn't backtrack. He didn't apologize. He just changed the subject. I didn't move, didn't breathe, just stared. Later that afternoon, someone clipped the moment and posted it to TikTok. It didn't take long. The clip spread like oil on water. A stitched video opened with a calm female voice saying, "POV, your mom throws you out post-surgery for your brother's gaming career." Then Jorn's words played over images of me, pictures I'd posted from my hospital bed, Lily tucked into my arm, hashtag after hashtag flooded in, hashtag postpartum eviction, family narcissism, hashtag she deserved better. One comment stuck out. "Tell her to drop the receipts. We'll back her all the way." I held the phone in one hand, Lily in the other. My chest was tight, not with sadness, but with something new. Recognition, validation from strangers I'd never meet, but who, in this digital moment, saw me clearer than my own mother ever had. Still, I hesitated. Would posting more make me look petty? Would it hurt Lily in the long run? Would it make me just like them? Marla didn't say much, but when she sat beside me that evening and saw my face, she placed a firm hand on mine. "The truth has legs, sweetheart," she said. "You don't have to chase it, but you can stand behind it." And that was it. For the first time in weeks, I wasn't the one who looked unhinged. They did. They sounded ridiculous. I watched the clip again. Joran, so sure of himself, so thoughtless. He didn't even flinch at the idea of mocking his sister on camera. That kind of cruelty wasn't sudden. It was practiced. I opened my messages and scrolled to Vera. My thumb hovered, then I tapped New Message. I didn't scream or rant. I didn't ask why. I simply typed, "I saw the clip. I heard what you said. This is your one and only warning. I will not be erased quietly." The message sent. 2 minutes later, a red receipt appeared. That was all. No reply, no apology. Just silence. The kind that burns louder than words ever could. I didn't cry. I opened my notes app. I started writing. I didn't post it yet, but I had just begun drafting my version of the truth. I sat alone at Marla's kitchen table, the baby monitor silent beside me. Lily had fallen asleep hours ago, belly full, cheeks flushed, one fist tucked under her chin like she was thinking in her dreams. The house was quiet, comfortably so. Not the tense, shallow silence of my parents' home. This silence had room in it, room to breathe, to think. I stared at the draft on my phone screen, thumb hovering over the blue post button. The caption read, "For those wondering if I was milking it, here's what I really gave." I hadn't added the pictures yet, I hadn't attached the files, but I'd written those words 4 times, then deleted them, then written them again. I didn't press send. Instead, I closed the app, pushed the phone aside, and reached into the manila folder I'd kept zipped in the bottom of my bag since I left home. It was bent at the corners, creased in places where I'd stuffed too many documents in too fast. I spread everything out slowly. A year of Venmo screenshots, rent receipts, bank statements, printed emails with subject lines like April rent and utility split, handwritten notes from my mother in curt Sharpie, $500 by 3rd or we talk. She never added "love, Mom," just dates and numbers. One email stood out, dated 7 months into my pregnancy. I'd just switched to part-time at the firm. My back hurt constantly. I was exhausted. I had asked just once if I could defer rent for a month and catch up later. Her reply, "That's not how the real world works, Tamsin. You're an adult now. Adults pay their way." I stared at that sentence so long it started to blur. My hand found a sticky note wedged into the folder. This is what accountability looks like. It was my handwriting. I didn't even remember writing it, but I knew why I had. Because some part of me, even then, knew I'd need this one day, not just to defend myself, but but to stay sane, proof I hadn't imagined it. Marla entered quietly, still in her robe, holding 2 mugs. She placed one beside me, then looked down at the table. I expected surprise, or maybe pity. "You kept all this?" she said, not unkindly. I nodded. Not because I thought I'd ever use it. I kept hoping, I don't know, that one day they'd realize I was good, that I tried. Marla sat across from me and took a sip. Then, setting her cup down carefully, she said, "Honey, they remembered. They just never cared." I didn't know what to say to that. So, I said nothing. Later that night, I opened Twitter. My name wasn't trending, but the hashtag was postpartum eviction. It had crossed 400,000 posts. The clip of Joran had been viewed over 2 million times. Celebrities were weighing in. Doctors, lawyers, mothers who had been kicked out, shut down, ignored after birth. I scrolled endlessly, reading stories that felt too familiar. They told me I was lazy. I had to change diapers standing up because I wasn't allowed to lie down. I was asked to move out 2 days after my C-section because my stepdad needed the space. My inbox filled with strangers, some offering solidarity, some offering legal help. One woman wrote, "I don't know you, but I want to hug you so bad. I was you last year." I clicked reply and wrote back, "I believe you." It didn't feel like much, but it felt like something. I packed the receipts in a fresh envelope, labeled it clearly, and left it on the kitchen counter. Marla's lawyer would know what to do with it. My hands didn't even shake. They were steady. Cold maybe, but clear. I wasn't burning bridges. I was refusing to drown under them. Before bed, I sat down and opened my email. To Vera Gideon. Subject: "For your records attached are the payments I've made over the last 6 years, categorized and time-stamped. You'll find all rent-related communications and statements of medical expenses I covered myself during pregnancy. I am no longer interested in maintaining a performance of daughterhood that requires silence. Here's everything I never said. Now it's your turn to read." I didn't write a closing. I didn't sign it. Love, Tamsin. Just hit send. I shut the laptop, turned off the light, and kissed Lily's forehead. I thought that would be the end of it, but I wasn't ready for what I would read next. Not from them, but from Joran. The morning sun slid through the kitchen blinds in stripes, warming the wooden table where I sat, feeding Lily. Her little fist curled around my thumb while her eyelids fluttered with sleep. The guest house was still, and for a rare moment, I felt like I existed in a pocket of calm, until my phone lit up. A notification banner. Joran just went live. I should have ignored it. I told myself I would. But curiosity is a stubborn itch. I opened Instagram, and the first clip that loaded was from his stream. There he was, standing in what used to be my room, in front of a freshly painted navy wall, bathed in ring light glow like he was starring in some show about rebirth. My rebirth. But he'd stolen the credits. "Big shout out to my sis," he said with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Accidental sponsor of this rig. She doesn't even know it. But hey, thanks." The audience laughed, heart reacts, crying emojis. One comment: "Family support, but make it passive-aggressive." I blinked, stunned. He kept going, pointing at his dual monitor setup, rattling off specs I'd never heard of. "All top tier, baby. Good gear for a good grind. Paid for with this credit card I found in an old drawer. Had my name, kind of." I froze. My credit history, my signature. I remembered co-signing something for him back when I thought we were still siblings, before streaming meant locking himself in the dark and pretending the rest of us didn't exist. He didn't just take my room. He used my name to fund his little empire. I sat there, jaw tight, one hand on Lily, the other gripping my mug like I needed something solid to hold on to. Marla walked in with 2 slices of toast and took one look at my face. "What happened?" she asked, already pulling out a chair. I slid the phone across the table. She watched, quiet as the video played. When it ended, she set it down carefully. "That's not just disrespect, that's fraud." I nodded, voice low. "I have the paperwork, the card, the charges. I didn't authorize any of this." "Then you've got him," she said. "On paper, on camera." Later that afternoon, as Lily napped and I loaded the dishwasher, another notification popped up. This time, a direct message from Joran. "Look, I'm getting a lot of hate. This isn't good for business. Just delete your post. I'll make it up to you." I didn't reply. A second message followed seconds later. "BTW, I still have those pics of Lily from the hospital. Would be a shame if someone memed those. Just saying." My hand stilled on the sink. He hadn't just crossed a line, he'd set fire to it. I took a screenshot, then another. I forwarded both to Marla's lawyer. I didn't answer him, not yet. Some things deserved silence more than screams. That night, I sat on the floor beside Lily's crib, scrolling through the avalanche of comments under the TikTok clip that had gone viral days earlier. Where's her GoFundMe? She needs to lawyer up, post the receipts, burn the house down. The old me would have hesitated, the version who tiptoed around my mother's moods, who smiled when insulted, who made herself smaller at every dinner table. That woman didn't survive the incision, the eviction, the slow unraveling of blood-tied illusions. "Are you going to let him get away with this?" Marla asked me quietly that night. I shook my head. "He thinks I'm still the little sister he could talk over. He's never met the woman I've become." Marla smiled, soft and knowing. "Then it's time he did." The next morning, I sat down with my laptop, opened a new folder, and began collecting everything. Screenshots, messages, bank records, the co-signed credit application, the Amazon orders, the timestamps, the receipts. I didn't rush. I moved like someone building a case, not chasing revenge. And then, in my notes app, I typed, "You took my room, you mocked my recovery. You tried to profit from my silence. You're going to learn today." I hadn't even posted the worst part yet. I clicked post. It didn't feel like vengeance. It felt like standing up after being on my knees for too long. The caption read, "They thought I was dramatic. They thought I'd go quietly. They forgot who taught me to document everything." Below it, a threaded series of images. Rent receipts from 6 years, every dollar transferred labeled "Rent, Mom." Screenshots of emails where I asked to delay payment during my pregnancy. Denied. A photo of the wall I painted with clouds. The discharge papers from my emergency C-section. The photo of Lily sleeping in the car seat on our way out of the house. I closed my laptop and took a breath. Lily stirred in her bassinet beside me. Marla entered the room with coffee, took one look at my face, and said nothing. She didn't need to. By sunset, the post had been shared nearly 5,000 times. By midnight, it had cracked 30,000. A blue checkmark account reposted it with the words, "She bled on the floor, and they asked for her key." My inbox flooded. Journalists, advocates, women, thousands of them. This is every daughter who got told she was too much. Drop a GoFundMe, sis. Your story is mine, and my mother's, and her mother's. I didn't sleep that night. I read until my eyes burned. The next morning, I opened my email and found one marked, "Private, FW, Will Inquiry." My hands trembled as I opened it. It was from my cousin May. We hadn't spoken in years, but she'd seen the post. She'd attached a scan of our grandfather's will. The original document stated that the family home was to be divided equally between me, Isolde, and Joran, but attached to the will was a revision dated 2 years ago. My name had been removed, not crossed out, whited out and replaced in clean, typed letters. The new document stated the house would pass to Joran alone for continued use and legacy. The lawyer listed a someone Vera knew from church. I pressed my hand to my mouth. My voice came out thin. They didn't just push me out, they erased me, on purpose, in ink. I sent it to Marla's attorney within minutes. That afternoon, the family group text exploded. Isolde, you're destroying this family. Vera, you've made us look like monsters to the world. Are you proud? I read their words, steady as stone. Then I typed, you did that without my help. I'm just holding up the mirror. Then I left the chat. I deleted it. I blocked Vera. I blocked Joran. I blocked Isolde. The silence felt like the first honest thing between us in years. Later that evening, Lily and I sat on the floor, stacking soft blocks while the kettle whistled in the kitchen. I looked at her, so small, so new, and whispered, you won't grow up thinking you have to earn love. You'll already have it. I pulled out my phone and opened a new email to Marla's lawyer. Subject, proceed. Body, let's begin the formal proceedings. I hit send. I thought the truth would end it, but the aftermath had just begun. 3 days after the post detonated across the internet, my phone rang. Unknown number. I knew it before I picked up. And still, I answered. Do you know what you've done? Vera's voice cracked across the line, brittle and breathless. I can't show my face at church. People are talking. My own friends won't look me in the eye. I stayed silent, arms folded, one eye on Lily, who was playing with her teething ring on the rug. This isn't just about you anymore, she pushed on. Your brother lost 2 sponsorships. Your father had to sell his car. We're being humiliated. How could you do this to us? I looked out the window. A neighbor's dog barked in the distance. I didn't do anything to you, I said, my voice measured. I stopped protecting what you did to me. Big difference. Don't be cruel, Tamsin, she whispered, low and trembling, like she still expected me to fold. I'm not, I said. You just finally have to see what you've tried so hard to erase. I ended the call before she could say more. There was nothing left she could say that I hadn't already survived. Later that afternoon, as I folded laundry in the living room, a white envelope slipped under the door caught my eye. At first, I thought it might be from a neighbor. But inside was a letter from the assisted living facility where my grandmother Odette had been placed last year, quietly and without my knowledge. The letter detailed that she had been severely undernourished, rarely visited, and showing signs of depression. One line read, the only recorded visit in the last 9 months was from a staff member named Angie, unrelated to the family. Angie, not Vera, not Isolde, not Joran. I packed Lily's things and buckled her into the car within 20 minutes. Marla didn't ask where I was going. She only said, you'll know what to do when you get there. The facility was beige and soulless, tucked behind a strip mall. Odette sat near the window, staring at a dying plant in a styrofoam cup. Her face lit up when she saw me. Oh, my girl, she said softly, reaching for my hand. She'd lost weight. Her skin was thinner, but her mind was as sharp as ever. They said you forgot about me, she whispered later, as we sat in the sunroom. But I knew better. You've always had a memory like a steel trap. I didn't know, I said, voice thick. They didn't tell me where you were. She smiled sadly. They didn't want you to know. You always loved too loudly. That night, I brought her home. Not just to visit, to stay. Over dinner, she laughed at Lily's babbling and patted my hand between bites. At one point, she said, "You didn't break the family, dear. You pruned it." Later, I sat at the kitchen table and filled out the guardianship forms. In the section labeled Head of Household, I paused for half a second, then wrote it. Tamsin Elaine Ford, not daughter, not wife, just me. The next morning, I took a walk with Lily in the stroller. The air had that early autumn crispness, and the sidewalks were littered with brittle leaves. On impulse, I turned down the street where I'd grown up. The house looked the same, except for the blinds drawn shut, the grass going yellow. I didn't ring the bell. I didn't want to see their faces. Instead, I walked up to the mailbox, slipped in a manila envelope. Inside was a copy of the will, the original, and a single handwritten note. It was never yours to hoard. But I'm done proving it. I turned and walked away. Not out of defeat, but with the kind of peace that grows in scorched ground. The final gavel hadn't fallen yet, but it was already echoing. It aired on a Thursday afternoon. The segment was called Family Boundaries: What Happens When Blood Turns Against You. A 5-minute special, local NBC affiliate, nothing fancy. But there I was, me holding Lily in my lap, my face half in shadow, my voice firm but even. I didn't cry. I didn't flinch. I told the story like I was filing a report, not revealing a wound. She gave birth, and 48 hours later, she was told to leave. The anchor narrated over a still photo of me outside the house, the suitcase Vera had packed for me crooked at my feet. Not just leave, but give up her room to her brother's streaming career. The comments started before the credits even rolled. Texts, emails, messages I hadn't seen in years. Tamsin, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. I watched the story. I was in tears. I remember you from high school. You always deserved more. Someone offered to donate a crib. Someone else said they were an attorney and would represent me for free. One woman messaged me saying she left her husband after watching my interview. You reminded me, she wrote, that peace isn't something we earn, it's something we claim. I sat there at the kitchen table, Lily asleep in her sling, and read every word. The court date came 2 weeks later. I wore navy slacks and a button-down shirt I hadn't fit into since before pregnancy. Marla drove me and waited in the hallway while I walked into the courtroom alone. Vera and Gideon were already there. Neither looked at me. The judge was direct, a woman in her 60s with steel gray hair and eyes that didn't blink too often. She didn't need much. I handed over the documentation, scans of the original will, proof of my payments, the forged amendment signed by a church friend of Vera's who wasn't even a licensed attorney at the time. When it was all laid out, the judge sighed, folded her hands, and said, "What was done under the pretense of authority was, in fact, exclusion by manipulation. Miss Ponge Ford has a rightful claim to this property. The house will be re-evaluated and equitably divided according to the original inheritance." Vera shifted uncomfortably. Gideon's jaw clenched, but he didn't speak. Joran didn't show. Outside the courthouse, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel vengeful. I felt calm. When we got home, Marla made tea. "It's almost like you won," she said, stirring her mug with 2 hands. "I didn't want to win," I answered. "I just wanted not to have to fight." We sat in silence, the kind that's earned after a storm. Victory didn't feel like fireworks. It felt like room to breathe. A week later, I signed the lease on a small apartment near the river. 2 bedrooms, worn floors, bright windows, peaceful. As we toured the space, the neighbor across the hall introduced herself. Her dog licked Lily's toes, and Lily clapped in delight. It was the first time I heard her full belly laugh. On the kitchen counter, the lease sat in a folder. I read it again, just because I could. Tamsin Elaine Ford, sole tenant. I didn't need anyone else's name to anchor me anymore. The mailbox downstairs was already labeled. I slid it open to check for the first wave of change of address responses. There were a few envelopes, bills, a magazine, a coupon, and one, heavy, thick, cream-colored, with handwriting I recognized but hadn't seen in years. It was from someone I never expected. The envelope was thick, cream-colored, slightly curled at the corners like someone had gripped it too tightly before letting it go. I recognized the handwriting the moment I saw it, tight, careful loops trying to disguise tension. It was Isolde's. I set Lily down on the playmat and opened it at the kitchen table. The first line of the letter read, "You made us look weak." I didn't finish reading, not because it hurt, but because I didn't need to. I already knew the tone, half apology, half accusation, wrapped in the language of someone who still believed her silence was more noble than my voice. I slid the letter into the drawer and went to make coffee. Later that afternoon, while sorting through mail, Lily came running from her little art corner with a crumpled sheet of construction paper. "Mama, look! Look what I drew!" I knelt down beside her and unfolded it. A house with 3 stick figures, drawn in thick purple crayon. One labeled Mama, one Grandma O, and one me. That was it. No Vera, no Gideon, no Joran. She drew the truth, I thought, without ever being told it. I held her close, not because I needed comfort, but because I needed her to feel how firmly she belonged. That night, Vera called again. I didn't answer. A voicemail came through. I listened, just once. It was Gideon. "Just call your mother," he said. "She's not sleeping. She's not eating. She just wants to talk." I deleted it without saving. I wasn't angry. I was just unavailable. The next morning, Marla came by with a grocery bag and a notary packet. She had that look on her face like she was about to suggest something obvious and revolutionary at the same time. "I brought the deed transfer papers," she said, setting them on the counter. "Thought it might feel good to sign something that belongs to you." I smiled. We sat at the table with 2 mugs of tea and 2 pens. I signed each page slowly, no fanfare. And no need for it. When we were done, Lily clapped from her booster seat. "Mama's house," she squealed. "That's right," I said. "Ours." That evening, after Lily went to bed and the house fell into that rare kind of hush you only get after real peace has settled, I pulled out an old notebook from my hospital bag, one I hadn't opened in over a year. Inside was a letter, to myself. It read, "I hope we're okay. I hope we're safe. I hope we're not still trying to be loved by people who don't know how." I read it twice. Then I lit a candle, watched the flame flicker, and let the paper curl into ash. Some stories don't need to be reread. Some just need to be released. The last story I had to tell wasn't mine, but it ended with my name on the title. 1 month after the ruling, a process server stood at the edge of Vera and Gideon's front lawn with a clipboard and a neutral expression. She handed over the notice without blinking. The same hands that once held me on fevered nights now trembled as they unfolded the document. "You have 30 days to vacate the premises. The property will be listed for sale and the proceeds distributed according to the original will." I didn't need to watch them read it. I already knew what silence would follow. Later that day, Vera called again. I didn't answer. Gideon sent an email. "Can we talk?" I forwarded it straight to my lawyer without a second glance. When the real estate agent called, she hesitated. "They're stalling," she said, "avoiding showings, claiming health issues, requesting delays. Do you want to press?" "Push hard," I replied. No extensions. Not one more excuse. There were no more compromises to make. 3 weeks later, I walked through the house I once called home, now empty, stripped of furniture, echoes bouncing off hollow walls. The navy paint Joran had used was already chipping. Scuff marks trailed along the baseboards. I opened the closet in what had been Lily's nursery. There, behind the metal bar where clothes used to hang, was faint handwriting. My handwriting. Lily's room. I pressed my fingers to it. No tears came, not because it didn't hurt, but because I'd already cried all those tears in secret. Outside, the sky was overcast, a perfect gray, like closure. News picked up the story within days of the final walkthrough. Local mother wins eviction reversal lawsuit after being displaced postpartum. A still from the NBC segment made the rounds online again. Me, holding Lily, standing outside that house. Former friends of Vera's stopped tagging her in church brunch photos. The neighborhood moms who used to comment on her casseroles went quiet. Joran posted a video titled, "Taking Time Off." I didn't watch it. I didn't need to. The fight was over. And this time, no one could twist that into guilt. On closing day, I signed the sale papers with Lily sitting beside me, coloring. A portion of the proceeds was immediately wired into a college fund in her name. Later that week, we stood outside a small, craftsman-style home 2 miles from the river. 2 bedrooms, a fenced yard, a lemon tree that had somehow survived the Spokane winters. I opened the front door with my own key. Not borrowed, not temporary, not conditional. The living room smelled of new paint and possibility. Lily toddled inside, arms outstretched, squealing like she understood that something sacred had just shifted. Her room was already set up: crib, bookshelf, rug, and a soft yellow lamp. I turned it on. The same warm glow filled the corner of the room, just like it had when I painted her first nursery, back when I still believed family was something that couldn't be revoked. That light hadn't changed, only I had. I didn't need their apology. I didn't need their version of who I was supposed to be. I had this room, this house, this child, and every hard-earned breath of my own name on the lease. They taught me what exile felt like. I turned it into a kingdom.